Welcome back to our channel, World Coins History. As you knew that old is gold, but these rare $quarter coins that are most valuable than you think, don't spend one of them, so please watch complete video and find your treasure. Let's start this. Top 1. Today, we are talking about a coin that most people have already spent without a second thought, and that's exactly why it's so interesting. This quarter might be sitting in your pocket right now, but depending on how it was struck, it could be the one collectors stop scrolling for. Look closely at this coin, because in the next few minutes I'll show you what makes the 2022 Wilma Mankiller quarter special, what tiny details people miss, and why some versions quietly sell for far more than 25 cents. And at the very end, I'll tell you the real market prices people are actually paying, not the hype. Start with a clean close-up of the front of the coin. This is part of the American Women Quarters program, and it features Wilma Mankiller, the first woman to serve as principal chief of the Cherokee Nation. That alone makes this quarter historic. It's not just currency. It's a statement. Strong portrait, confident expression, and a design that feels modern compared to older quarters. Slow pan across the design. Notice the details in her hair, the clothing, and the background elements inspired by Cherokee culture. This wasn't rushed artwork. It was carefully planned, and collectors pay attention to that. Now flip the coin. Classic George Washington on the back, but here's where it gets interesting. These quarters were struck at multiple mints in 2022. Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco. Most people never check the mint mark, but that tiny letter can change everything. Zoom in near Washington's ponytail. If you see a P or a D, that's a standard circulation strike. Billions were made. Most of these are worth face value unless they're in near perfect condition, but if you see an S, pause the video right there. That means San Francisco. Some of these were proof coins made specifically for collectors. Deep mirror-like fields. Sharp details. No wear at all. These were never meant to buy coffee. They were meant to sit in cases. Now here's the cliffhanger most people don't expect. Even regular circulation quarters can be valuable, but only if they're wrong. Show extreme close-ups. Look for doubling on the lettering. Check Wilma Mankiller's name. Look at the rim. Some coins came out with weak strikes, off-center designs, or die chips that create raised blobs of metal where they shouldn't be. These are mint errors, and collectors love them because no two are exactly the same. There are also examples with grease-filled dies, where parts of the design look faded or missing. To most people, that looks like damage. To collectors, that's personality, and condition matters more than people realize. A quarter pulled from change is usually worn. But if you find one with crisp edges, no scratches, and full detail, it jumps into a completely different category. That's when grading companies get involved, and that's when prices start climbing. Here's a fun detail. This coin isn't just about collecting. It's about representation. Wilma Mankiller's quarter is one of the most talked about designs in the entire American Women series. That keeps demand steady, especially among newer collectors and people building themed collections. Cut to a shot of the coin next to other American Women quarters. This one stands out. Bold. Confident. Memorable. So what is it actually worth? A regular circulated Wilma Mankiller quarter is worth exactly face value. 25 cents. No mystery there. Uncirculated examples from Philadelphia or Denver often sell for $1 to $3, depending on condition. Proof versions from San Francisco usually sell in the range of $5 to $15, and verified mint errors or high-grade certified coins have sold at auction anywhere from $20 to well over $100, depending on rarity and condition. Real numbers. Real sales. That's why this coin matters. Not because every one is valuable, but because the right one can surprise you. Now I want to hear from you. Have you found one of these in your change yet? Do you check your quarters, or do they disappear into vending machines? And which coin would you love to add to your collection next? Top 2. We are talking about a quarter that looks ordinary until you realize it was never supposed to exist like this again. A coin so common that millions of people have spent it, and so misunderstood that some versions quietly sell for hundreds, even thousands, while others are still sitting in junk drawers right now. This is the United States of America quarter dollar from 1776 to 1976, the bicentennial quarter. And in the next few minutes, I'll show you what makes this coin special, which details actually matter, the mistakes collectors hunt for, and why one small difference can turn pocket change into real money by the end of this video. Start with a tight close-up of the front. At first glance, it's George Washington, same face we've seen for decades. But look at the date. Instead of 1 year, it says 1776 to 1976. That's the giveaway. This coin was struck to celebrate 200 years of American independence. It was the first time the U.S. Mint ever changed the design of the quarter for a national celebration. Now flip it over, slow and steady. This is where it gets iconic. The drummer boy. A colonial soldier mid-stride, drum slung across his chest, with a torch of victory surrounded by 13 stars. This reverse design only appeared for this one event. No other quarter before or after looks like this. Here's the part most people miss. These quarters were made in massive numbers, over 1 billion of them. So most are worth face value. But not all bicentennial quarters are the same, and this is where things get interesting. Zoom in near Washington's ponytail. Look for a mint mark. If there's no mint mark, it came from Philadelphia. AD means Denver. But if you see an S, pause right there. That means San Francisco, and those are a different story. San Francisco struck special collector versions, including proof coins with mirror-like surfaces and sharper details. Some were even made with 40% silver instead of the normal copper-nickel mix. Same design. Very different value. Now for the cliffhanger collectors love. Errors: show extreme close-ups. Some bicentennial quarters have doubling on the lettering. Look closely at Liberty or In God We Trust. Others were struck off-center, missing part of the design. There are examples with clipped planchets, where the edge looks like it took a bite. And then there are die cracks and die chips that leave raised lines or blobs of metal where they don't belong. To most people, those look like mistakes. To collectors, those are fingerprints from the minting process. Condition matters just as much. A worn bicentennial quarter that's been through decades of pockets is common. But one with sharp edges, clean fields, and full detail is a different animal. That's when grading comes into play, and that's when prices start changing fast. Here's a fun fact. Even though the date says 1776 to 1976, none of these were actually minted in 1976 alone. Most were struck in 1975 and 1976, but they all carry the same dual date. That little detail confuses a lot of people and fuels a lot of myths. So what's the real value? A standard circulated bicentennial quarter is worth 25 cents. No hype there. Uncirculated examples from Philadelphia or Denver often sell for $1 to $5, depending on condition. Proof coins from San Francisco usually sell for $5 to $20. Silver versions from San Francisco commonly sell in the range of $10 to $30, and rare error coins or high-grade certified examples have sold at auction for $50, a few $100s, and in exceptional cases, over $1,000. Real sales. Real collectors. That's why this quarter still matters. Now I want to know. Do you own a bicentennial quarter? Have you ever checked yours for silver or errors? And which US coin would you love to add to your collection someday? Top 3. We are talking about a quarter that looks ordinary, feels ordinary, and usually gets spent without hesitation, but hiding inside this coin is one of the most surprising value gaps in modern US change. This is the United States of America quarter dollar from 1974. And in the next few minutes, I'll show you why most are worth exactly face value, why a few are anything but, and how a tiny detail can completely flip the story by the end of this video. Start with a clean close-up of the front. George Washington faces left, calm and familiar. The date reads 1974. No special markings. No celebration. Nothing screaming, collectible. That's what makes this coin dangerous to ignore. Flip it over slowly. The eagle spreads its wings, arrows clutched tight, olive branches below. This is the classic quarter design Americans saw for decades. By 1974, silver was already gone, and these were copper-nickel coins meant to be spent, not saved. Now here's the twist. While most 1974 quarters are common, one version of this coin has become legendary among collectors. Zoom in near Washington's ponytail. Look for the mint mark. No mint mark means Philadelphia. AD means Denver. Both produced huge numbers, and most of those are still worth 25 cents, but if you see an S, pause right there. San Francisco made proof coins in 1974, and that's where things start getting interesting. Here's the cliffhanger collectors love. A small number of 1974 S-proof quarters were struck in aluminum. Not copper-nickel. Not silver. Aluminum. These were experimental pieces, never meant to leave the mint. Only a handful are known to exist, and they look completely different once you know what to check. Extremely lightweight. Pale color. No copper edge. They're so rare that when one surfaces, it instantly becomes a headline in the coin world. Now let's talk about errors you might actually find. Bring in tight macro shots. Some 1974 quarters show strong doubling in God We Trust, or Liberty. Others were struck off-center, leaving part of the design missing. There are clipped planchets with curved bites on the edge, die cracks that leave raised lines across the surface, and broad strikes where the coin spreads wider than normal. These aren't damage. These are minting mistakes, and collectors pay attention. Condition matters more than most people realize. A worn 1974 quarter is common. But an uncirculated example with clean fields, sharp edges, and strong luster is far tougher to find than you'd expect. Many were heavily used during the 70s and never saved. Here's another detail people miss. Because this was a high-production year, collectors often ignore it. That makes top-condition coins stand out even more when they're certified. So what are they worth? A circulated 1974 quarter is worth face value, 25 cents. Uncirculated examples from Philadelphia or Denver usually sell for $1 to $5, sometimes more in high grades. Proof coins from San Francisco often sell for $5 to $15. Common mint error coins can sell for $50 to several $100, and the extremely rare 1974 S aluminum proof quarter has sold for well over $100,000 at auction. That's a massive jump from pocket change. Now I want to hear from you. Do you own a 1974 quarter? Have you ever checked one closely, or do they all get spent without a thought? And which US coin would you love to find in your change one day? Top 4. We are talking about a quarter almost everyone has held, and almost everyone has ignored. The 1998 quarter looks ordinary, feels ordinary, and usually gets spent without a second thought. But here's the twist. Some versions of this coin quietly sell for real money, and most people have no idea why. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes I'll show you what makes the 1998 quarter different, which tiny details actually matter, the mistakes collectors hunt for, and why one small surprise can change the value completely. By the end of this video, start with a clear close-up of the front. This is the classic Washington quarter design that ran for decades before the state quarters took over. George Washington facing left, clean and familiar. Look at the date. 1998. Nothing flashy. No celebration. No special event. That's exactly why people overlook it. Now flip it over. The eagle is back, wings spread wide, perched on arrows with olive branches below. This was the final stretch of the traditional quarter design. Just 1 year later, everything changed with the launch of the state quarters program. That makes the 1998 quarter part of the last chapter of a long-running design that ended soon after. Here's where things get interesting. The U.S. Mint produced hundreds of millions of these quarters in Philadelphia and Denver. Those are the ones most people find in circulation. But not all 1998 quarters were made for pockets. Zoom in near Washington's ponytail. Look for a mint mark. No mint mark means Philadelphia. AD means Denver. Both are extremely common, but if you see an S, pause right there. That's San Francisco. Those were proof coins made for collectors. Mirror-like backgrounds. Sharp details. These were never meant to be spent, and condition matters a lot. Now let's talk about the coins that keep collectors watching until the end. Errors: bring in tight macro shots. Some 1998 quarters were struck off-center, leaving part of the design missing. Others show doubling on the lettering or Washington's profile. There are clipped planchets where the edge looks like it took a curved bite. And then there are the rare ones struck on the wrong metal, including examples struck on dime-sized planchets. Those are the coins that make people do a double take. Most people would think those are damaged. Collectors know better. Those mistakes happened at the mint, and they can't be recreated. Condition is the next big divider. A worn 1998 quarter that's been bouncing around for years is worth face value. But an uncirculated example with clean fields, no scratches, and strong detail is a different story. That's when grading companies get involved, and that's when prices start moving. Here's a small cliffhanger most people don't expect. Because the state quarters launched in 1999, collectors started saving coins heavily right after 1998. That means truly pristine 1998 circulation strikes are harder to find than people assume. So what's the real value? A circulated 1998 quarter is worth 25 cents. Uncirculated examples from Philadelphia or Denver usually sell for $1 to $3, sometimes more in top condition. Proof coins from San Francisco often sell in the range of $5 to $15. And verified mint error coins or high-grade certified examples have sold at auction for $50, a few $100, and in rare cases, over $1,000 depending on the error and condition. That's why this quiet, ordinary-looking quarter still matters. Now I want to hear from you. Do you own a 1998 quarter? Have you ever checked one closely, or do they all disappear into everyday spending? And which US coin would you love to find in your change someday? Top 5, we are talking about a quarter that breaks the rules in a way most people never notice. A coin with no mint mark, no silver, and no obvious reason to be special, yet collectors still hunt certain versions like treasure. This is the United States of America $quarter from 1967. And if you stick with me, I'll show you why this quiet-looking coin has a strange history, what details actually matter, and how the right example can end up worth far more than you'd expect by the end of this video. Start with a tight close-up of the front. George Washington faces left, serious and familiar. Look closely near the date. You'll notice something missing. There's no mint mark. No P. No D. No S. That wasn't an accident. Now flip the coin over slowly. The eagle stands tall, wings spread, arrows in its talons, olive branches below. Classic. Clean. Almost boring at first glance. But this design was struck during one of the most chaotic moments in US coin history. Here's the story most people don't know. In the mid-1960s, Americans were hoarding coins. Silver prices were rising, and people pulled silver coins out of circulation fast. The US Mint panicked. To keep coins flowing, they removed silver from quarters starting in 1965 and also removed mint marks entirely from 1965 through 1967. They didn't want people hoarding specific mints. That means every 1967 quarter came from multiple mints, but none of them tell you where they were made. That alone makes this coin feel mysterious. Now here's the first cliffhanger. Even though 1967 quarters contain no silver, some people still swear they found silver ones. And in very rare cases, they're right. Bring in extreme close-ups. A small number of 1,967 quarters were accidentally struck on leftover silver planchets from earlier years. These mistakes slipped through the mint and escaped into circulation. They look almost identical unless you know what to check. Weight. Sound. Edge color. That's where the secret hides. Errors are where the real excitement starts. Zoom in on the lettering. Some 1967 quarters show strong doubling in God We Trust, or Liberty. Others were struck off-center, leaving part of the design missing. There are die cracks that leave raised lines across the coin, clipped planchets that look like a bite was taken out of the edge, and even broad strikes where the coin spreads wider than normal. Most people would toss these aside as damaged. Collectors see fingerprints from the minting process. Condition is the next divider. A worn 1967 quarter that's been in circulation for decades is common. But an uncirculated example with sharp details, clean surfaces, and strong luster is much harder to find than people expect. Remember, people weren't saving these at the time. They were spending them. Here's another twist. Because there were no proof sets sold to the public in 1967, finding a truly flawless example is tougher than with many other years. That scarcity pushes demand quietly upward. So what's the real value? A circulated 1967 quarter is usually worth face value, 25 cents. Uncirculated examples commonly sell for $1 to $5, depending on condition. High-grade certified coins can sell for $20 to over $100. Verified error coins often sell for $50, several $100s, and in rare silver planchet cases, well over $1,000 at auction. Not bad for a coin most people ignore. Now I want to hear from you. Do you own a 1967 quarter? Have you ever checked one for errors or waited to see if it's silver? And which US coin would you love to find hiding in your change? Top 6. We are talking about a quarter that almost nobody talks about, and that's exactly why it deserves attention. The 1997 quarter sits quietly between flashy commemoratives and the explosive start of the state quarters era, and most people spend it without a second glance. But hidden inside this ordinary-looking coin are details that collectors absolutely care about. Stick with me, because in the next few minutes I'll show you why the 1997 quarter is more important than it looks, the tiny things that separate common from collectible, and which versions can surprise you when we get to the value at the end. Start with a clean close-up of the front. George Washington, calm and familiar, facing left. The date reads 1997. No celebration. No special design. Nothing shouting for attention. That's the trick. This was the final calm moment before the biggest coin program in US history changed everything. Flip the coin over slowly. The eagle spreads its wings wide, arrows clutched tight, olive branches below. This is the classic quarter reverse that Americans saw for generations. And here's the key detail most people miss. The 1997 quarter is one of the very last regular-issue quarters before the state quarters program launched in 1999. That makes it part of the closing chapter of a long design era. Now here's where collectors lean forward. Zoom in near Washington's ponytail. Look for a mint mark. No mint mark means Philadelphia. AD means Denver. These two produced hundreds of millions of coins, and most are still floating around in circulation today. But if you see an S, stop right there. That's San Francisco. Those were proof coins made for collectors only. Mirror-like surfaces. Sharper details. These were never meant for pockets, vending machines, or parking meters. Now let's talk about what actually makes a 1997 quarter exciting. Errors. Bring in tight macro shots. Some were struck off-center, leaving part of the design missing. Others show doubling in the lettering, especially in God We Trust or Washington's profile. There are clipped planchets where the edge looks like it was cut short, die cracks that leave raised lines across the surface, and broad strikes where the coin spreads wider than normal. These aren't damage. These are mint mistakes, and they can't be duplicated. Here's a small cliffhanger most people don't expect. Because collectors were already preparing for the state quarters program, a lot of attention skipped right over 1997. That means truly pristine circulation strikes are harder to find than you'd think. Many were used. Few were saved carefully. Condition is everything. A worn 1997 quarter is common. But an uncirculated example with strong luster, clean fields, and sharp details jumps into a completely different category. That's when grading companies get involved, and that's when prices start moving. Now let's talk real numbers. A circulated 1997 quarter is worth face value, 25 cents. Uncirculated examples from Philadelphia or Denver typically sell for $1 to $3, sometimes more in top condition. Proof coins from San Francisco usually sell for $5 to $15. Verified mint error coins and high-grade certified examples have sold at auction for $50, a few $100s, and in rare cases, over $1,000 depending on the error and condition. Not bad for a coin most people never think twice about. Now I want to hear from you. Do you own a 1997 quarter? Have you ever checked one closely, or do they all disappear into everyday spending? And which coin would you love to pull from your change one day? Top 7, and last expensive quarter. We are talking about a quarter that looks so normal it almost feels invisible. The 1981 quarter doesn't celebrate anything, doesn't look special, and usually gets spent without a second thought. But here's the surprise. This is one of the hardest modern quarters to find in truly nice condition, and the right one can catch collectors off guard. Stick with me, because in the next few minutes I'll show you why the 1981 quarter has a strange reputation, what details actually matter, and which versions quietly sell for far more than people expect. By the end of this video, start with a clean close-up of the front. George Washington faces left, sharp and familiar. The date reads 1981. Nothing flashy. No dual date. No special design. That's exactly why people overlooked it. Flip the coin over slowly. The eagle stands strong, wings spread, arrows in its talons, olive branches below. This classic reverse had been used for decades, and in 1981 it was nearing the end of its long run. Here's the story that makes this coin interesting. In the early 1980s, the U.S. Mint was still dealing with reduced demand for coins. Fewer people were collecting, fewer coins were being saved, and production numbers dropped. That means many 1981 quarters went straight into circulation and stayed there. Now zoom in near Washington's ponytail. Look for the mint mark. No mint mark means Philadelphia. AD means Denver. These two produced the circulation strike stud. If you see an S, pause right there. That's San Francisco, and those were proof coins made for collectors only. Deep mirrored fields. Sharp edges. These were never meant for everyday use. Here's the first cliffhanger. While millions were made, finding a 1981 quarter with strong luster, clean surfaces, and no wear is surprisingly tough. People didn't save these. They spent them. Now let's talk about what collectors really hunt. Errors. Bring in tight macro shots. Some 1981 quarters show doubling in the lettering or Washington's profile. Others were struck off-center, leaving part of the design missing. There are clipped planchets where the edge looks curved or incomplete, die cracks that leave raised lines across the coin, and broad strikes where the metal spread wider than normal during striking. These mistakes happened at the mint. They can't be recreated, and that's what gives them value. Condition is everything with this year. A worn 1981 quarter is common. But an uncirculated example with full detail, strong luster, and no marks is a different story. That's when grading companies step in, and prices jump faster than people expect. Here's another detail most people miss. Because collectors weren't actively saving rolls in 1981, high-grade examples are scarcer today than many later years. That makes top-condition coins surprisingly competitive. So what are these worth? A circulated 1981 quarter is worth face value, 25 cents. Uncirculated examples from Philadelphia or Denver usually sell for $2 to $5, sometimes more in top condition. Proof coins from San Francisco often sell for $5 to $15. High-grade certified examples and verified mint error coins have sold at auction for $50, several $100s, and in rare cases, over $1,000. Not bad for a coin most people never look at twice. Now I want to hear from you. Do you own a 1981 quarter? Have you ever checked one closely, or do they all disappear into everyday spending? And which US coin would you love to add to your collection someday? If this video helped you see everyday coins in a new way, hit like. Subscribe for more hidden stories from your change. And keep watching, because the next coin you overlook might be the one that surprises you most.